Good afternoon and welcome to another Bermuda News and Views. I'm your host Don Burgess here at the lovely House Bermuda, and my guests today are Debbie Ray Rivers from SCARS. Welcome, Debbie.
Thank you, Don.
And Shanika Jones from Advocate for Change Bermuda. And you notice our third chair is a little bit empty at the moment. We had another guest who was ill this morning, but we hope to have lawyer Bruce Swan come in. He's agreed to step in, but he'll be a little bit late. Today we're talking about sex offenders, sentences and treatments, and sort of coming out of the David Miners case, where a lot of people in the community were outraged that he only got 5 years in jail for his offense against a minor. And we'll start with Shanika. Just tell us a little bit about Advocates for Change Bermuda and what about this case sparked you guys to be vocal.
So basically we're a group of concerned citizens that just want to speak out and be a voice to those that may feel they don't have a voice. We basically came together, sparked by David Miners' very lenient sentence. And discussions were made amongst us, and we felt the need to step into action. I may want to point out that particularly this issue is not the only issue we want to tackle. We want to tackle all issues pertaining to our community, but particularly with this case, being that it's a high rise of victims in our community, including our membership. It's a high percentage of our membership that are actually victims, so we wanted to step forward and be voices, loud voices for this issue, particularly right now.
And you organized a protest a couple weeks ago.
Not particularly a protest. We just wanted to kind of make our faces known and our voices heard, particularly in light of David Miners' very lenient sentence.
Okay. A lot of people know about SCARS, but maybe for the few people in the community who don't, why don't you tell us a little bit about SCARS and what you guys do?
Absolutely. We were born October 27, 2011. We are a nonprofit whose mission in the community is to reduce the risk of child sexual abuse and to be an advocate and a voice for children who have been sexually molested, as well as their affected family.
Right. Now, part of the thing is, I know a few years ago when they were dealing with sentencing of child predators in magistrates court, I believe SCARS was one of the many groups, umbrella groups, that came together to make recommendations and add to that. What did you guys do at that point in time?
Absolutely. Well, we actually provided some of our recommendations to Justice Cowley, and we, described how, although the sentencing for perpetrators of child sexual abuse, that's important to make sure they have the appropriate sentencing, but we also made many other recommendations that we felt were important in terms of proper treatment at Westgate, in terms of requiring youth-serving organizations to be educated in sexual abuse prevention, requiring youth-serving organizations to implement codes of conduct in their youth-serving organizations, and talk about management of sex offenders when they get out, and it was a slew of other recommendations other than just sentencing, because it goes broader than that. We need, SCAR's mission is to prevent. Sexual abuse of children is preventable, and we have to do everything we can to prevent, innocence lost. And we all play a role in that. Every single person in this community, whether you're a youth-serving organization, whether you're the media, whether they're the legislators writing the laws, all those organizations that open their doors to children, parents have an obligation to protect their children and have conversations. So it is everybody's responsibility when it comes to this issue of child sexual abuse.
Yeah. I actually sat in on a SCARS training when you guys did it with North Village Community Club.
Yes.
And I believe they were the first football club to go through the training.
Absolutely. We've trained 8,440 adults in our community. Over 15% of our adult population have now been educated in child sexual abuse prevention, which is amazing. We are the first country in the world to have trained the most adults in prevention. And we're really proud of our community because more and more organizations are getting on board, requiring this. We just trained the Bermuda police, the new recruits, yesterday, and now they've mandated that for all new recruits. And we want to see all youth-serving organizations mandate education and how to prevent child sexual abuse from coming into their schools or in their buildings, on their fields, wherever they are taking care of children. We need to do everything we can to protect the children in our care.
Now, I believe, well, I don't believe, I know that a lot of people have credited SCARS and the SCARS training to the rise in the number of cases that are appearing before the courts. Now, it's not like these things weren't happening in the past. As you were saying, like people tend to keep it secret, but now because there's we're having a discussion and we're talking about it.
We're revealing secrets,
yes,
is basically what we're doing. This has been a silent crime for generations. It's been going on for generations in our community. But because of the shame of child sexual abuse, it has silenced us. And I think now that more and more adults are becoming educated, knowing what to look out for, breaking down those walls of shame, from what we understand, reporting is up 125%. According to the Department of Public Prosecution, I believe since 2015. And I think all of us at SCARS believe that is because we have a community now who's educated in sexual abuse prevention, and that is wonderful for not only the children of Bermuda, but future generations. People's eyes are opened, they're having different conversations with their children, and they're learning the training education that we provide to the community really opens your eyes to what are the facts about child sexual abuse, how do we minimize the opportunity, what do we do about talking to other adults who cross boundaries of children, and how do we talk to our children about body safety. We are now recognizing some of the signs of that might be child sexual abuse. What are some of those signs? And we're also reacting responsibly when we find out about it. All of those steps are working, and we can see that working in our community. And I can tell you what has really helped is we don't charge for this education. Nobody should pay to learn how to protect children from child sexual abuse. And we are very grateful to our corporate and community donors who believe in our cause, who help fund SCARS so that we can continue to offer this education at no cost to our community.
So what might be some of the signs that a child's going through sexual abuse?
Well, some of the signs could be withdrawal, could be depression, could be falling grades, could be cruelty to animals, could be drug abuse, could be a change in behavior, could be all of a sudden they're angry. Now, not every sign means child sexual abuse. I want to make that very, very clear. But I think when you see some of these signs, what we need to do, and our training will teach, teaches adults, is how do we respond when we see those signs? How do we ask open-ended questions? How do we try to get some information and some intervention to that child to find out what's going on? Because, like I said, if we intervene early, I think that goes a long way in trying to figure out what's going on in a child's life. It may not be child sexual abuse, but we do have to find out. Why is this change of behavior? Why are they suddenly using drugs? Why are they, have fallen grades? Why do they suddenly don't want to go home with somebody? It may not be child sexual abuse, but let's start asking some questions and finding out what's going on in this little child's life. Yeah,
parents being more proactive and involved.
Absolutely. Talking to their children about body safety and about sex at an appropriate age. It has to be a child-friendly, age-appropriate conversation. And when you do the SCARS training, we provide those tools to the parents, give them the information that they have to go home and not just do the training, really act on what they've learned and start having some of those uncomfortable conversations with their child. Because I can tell you this, if a child knows that they can go to a parent or a safe adult and tell them anything about anyone, that can protect a child right there. To know that no matter what you tell me, I'm going to believe you, I love you, I'm here to protect you, and we'll get through this together, and I'm always here for you. I think that goes a long way. I can tell you one thing, if I would have done this training 14, 15, 16 years ago, I could have saved a lot of pain in my family because it would have sent some red flags to me I would have immediately known that you cannot assume the role a person plays in a family or in a community, in an organization, is necessarily going to keep children safe. I would have known what those red flags are, and that's what's so great about education.
Right. I think one of the things that Justice Greaves said at the sentencing for David Miners, he was talking about just because of how involved he was in the community and how he's looked at as a man of the church and the man of respect, of a position of authority, that he had broken that trust. And he said it's, basically people like you, as parents, we can't trust, you're making us, we can't trust adults anymore who we thought we can trust. It's just, just a scary thing as I'm not a parent, but it must be as a parent that, if you have nephews or nieces or anything else, you think somebody is trustworthy, but you never know anymore.
No, exactly. And I think it also gives a bad, especially for church members, it gives God a bad rap. If you ask me, taking off my scars hat right now, you're trying to teach some sort of hope for a child, and then you're betraying that because children are supposed to be protected and loved, not to be gain sexual satisfaction from. And so it really can mess up a child's faith. In many ways, it can also betray the trust of people, in people. One of the spillovers of child sexual abuse is having trust issues. I'm a survivor of sexual abuse. I have serious issues with trust. And I have to keep reminding myself, okay, Debbie, you can believe what this person's saying, or you don't have to always go back to that trauma, of what caused, what happened to you as a little girl by not trusting this person who should have been trusted. He was a babysitter. He should have been taking care of me. I don't have to make everybody pay for that. But it's really hard to work on that, and that takes effort, and trust has to be gained. It has to be earned, sorry. That has to be earned, and so that takes time. But that is also one of the spillovers, is trust, and that's what Justice Greaves was absolutely right. It's a betrayal of trust to the family, to the child. As the child grows up, who do they trust, who do they believe? It causes a scar, without a doubt.
Now, I actually spoke with Director of Public Prosecutions, Larry Mussenden, yesterday. He's in on a trial dealing with a child porn case this week, and I asked him about what's the sentencing guidelines for Supreme Court, because I found some for Magistrates Court that SCARS and the other groups, Coalition had worked on it, and for Magistrates Court the guidelines recommended a sentence between 16 and 32 months, and in Supreme Court, he was basically said that it's up to the judge based on past precedents. So, Shanika, what do you think about that?
Speaking from Advocates for Change, we just feel that anyone who takes advantage of a child or puts them in danger is dangerous. I don't think that there should be a level of dangerous. There should be, you're dangerous or you're not dangerous. So I don't know. It sounds ludicrous to me. And
Well, part of the thing too is like during the sentencing, because for David Miners, they went through I want to say 8 to 10 other cases that had happened recently. Jonathan Cumberbatch was one, and there were several others, and just sitting there listening to what the person did and what sentence they got for the judge in order to form his basis. So the benchmark has sort of already been set, and then they take into considerations. I know because it was his first offense that he got a discount, and because he pled guilty, he got a discount because the prosecution was asking for a sentence of 10 years, and because of the discounts, it got cut down to 5. So,
well, what concerned SCARS, and I was very vocal about this, is that it was reported, I don't know who was responsible for making this statement that he didn't show signs of pedophilia. That I'm very, I can tell you that's very concerning, because even if the person did not have the evidence in front of him or her to make that determination that they did not show signs of pedophilia, knowing that pedophilia is sexual feelings directed towards children, that's very scary because pedophiles are skilled at lying. Mm-hmm. They have betrayed a family, they have betrayed a community, they have lied and minimized their actions or not admitted their actions. They are always trying to they don't do this in public. They didn't do it, but David Myers didn't do this in front of his family. So he was always hiding. And so to say that he didn't show signs of pedophilia, that's sending a wrong message to our community that he was not a pedophile. He actually, from what the report said, that he put his mouth on the child's private parts. To me, that would be sexually interested in a child. And so I think we need to make sure that when we have these psychiatric reports or wherever these reports are coming from, that if someone doesn't have the evidence from him in front of them and they are interviewing a accused, because he wasn't convicted at that point, obviously he was accused, they should be honest and say, well, we can't definitely say that he's not a pedophile. We don't, through a few conversations, I don't know how long that psychiatric report takes, I don't know any information on that. All I know is somebody said he didn't show signs of pedophilia. Right. But I don't think you can get that just by talking to somebody. Well, that takes a program, a treatment program.
Part of the thing, I think with the court system right now, it's taking 6 weeks to get a social inquiry report.
Yes, I have heard that.
Because the system is so, there's so many offenses, not just sexual offenses, but other offenses that they have to have.
Yes.
And you just have Dr. Henegolf as the only person who can do the report, so everything gets backed up depending on his schedule.
So I say that we need to put some money into that area and try to get some more skilled, trained psychiatrists or whoever they use that understand the minds of sex offenders. I think it's worth investing in that. Mm-hmm. I think we need to find some funds to make sure that we have enough skilled, trained professionals that can properly diagnose perpetrators, accused perpetrators, so we know what we're dealing with. We're talking about the protection of children, first and foremost. This is not about shaming people. This is not about shaming families. This is about protecting children in our community. And I've spoken with a lawyer who has defended a perpetrator. And that perpetrator had almost the exact same signs as a child of the child who he harmed. And, did that perpetrator have any help when he was little? Did anybody see those signs? And I think that's why prevention is so important and it's crucial. And I think we need to invest as much money as we can into making the system work. We also need to invest in the most proper treatment at Westgate. I understand, and you can do your own investigation, Dawn, but I understand that the treatment program at Westgate is called the SOTP, Sex Offender Treatment Program. I also understand from a skilled forensic psychologist that that is not the program used in the UK. It is not the proper treatment for pedophiles. The proper treatment is called HSP, which is Healthy Sex Program. Do we have that at Westgate? And if we don't, how can we get it? What funds do we need? We should be screaming about that, saying where are the funds so that we can offer the most proper treatment to sex offenders so we don't set them up to fail when they get out. They deserve to have the best treatment out there, wouldn't you say? I mean, I would say that. So that when they get out, they or at least have some tools and strategies, and they are properly managed as well when they get out, to protect themselves as well. And I understand that we don't. So we have to find the funds to provide the training and the proper treatment. We must invest in that and the recruitment of the people that can provide that program. And we need to start the program. Now, you can do your own research, find out if I'm wrong. Maybe the Healthy HSP is at Westgate. I understand it's not. That's a problem, and I think we need to find some funds to make sure that happens. And this is not about blaming anyone. This is not about pointing fingers. This is not blaming a government. Or we've gone through 3 governments since SCARS has been here, and so we can't say it's just one government. And I want to say this. Kathy Lynn Simmons, our Attorney General, is the first Attorney General who put a dangerous sex offender's face on the front of a newspaper and allowed families to see that this person is a danger and not to allow your children to be around them. Organizations to say you can't hire this person if you take care of kids. She was the first one. I don't think a law changed for her to be able to do that. I could be wrong, but I don't think a law was written that allowed her to do that. I mean, that's progress in this country. And now we can talk about risk, low risk, high risk, medium risk.
Yeah.
I think risk is risk. But at least we have started somewhere. For 7 years, I've not seen that in Bermuda, where we've had a dangerous sex offender put on the front page of a newspaper.
Shanika, how important do you think it is, like, the community knows who these people are?
I think it's absolutely important. I mean, there was a question within our group that, you know, we were asking, why isn't the list made public? I mean, because like you said, risk is risk. And I feel that if, in Bermuda being as small as it is, I have a better chance of bumping into my perpetrator in the grocery store versus being in the UK or the US. I think it's really important to have that publicized or posted somewhere for people to see. You know, not everybody's privy to information via word of mouth or the internet or whatever, and we need education. You know, people need to know who these people are.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
And I do want to think about, and I think that you made a great point, and I think what we have to think about is the victim as well. So I think when it comes to the press, you know, presenting these things to the public, we do not need to give the relationship of the perpetrator to the victim.
Exactly.
That is very dangerous, and it does not help a victim. Victims need time to heal, and shame takes time to break down, and the last thing they want to be is identified as the victim. And so when we report child sexual abuse cases, I think it's just important to give the person's name and that they sexually abused a male child or a female child. We do not need to give the relationship, because when it comes to then naming them, and they've only had 2 years in prison, the public is going to remember, oh yeah, he sexually molested, you know, his step-granddaughter. Well, there's probably only one step-granddaughter or two step, you know. So it's not going to take long for someone to figure out who the victim is. And Bermuda's a small community. I think we need to be very careful about naming the relationship to the perpetrator to the victim.
Yeah,
I think that's important.
There was a recent case where the person who committed the offense and was convicted, they didn't name who the child was, but then on WhatsApp, people were sending around the photo of the child that was involved, and really just adding more to the burden. People
need to think about, what if that was your child? Would you want your child's face to go, or somebody to have your child's face all around Facebook? You have to put yourself in people's places. And unless you've lived it and understand what it feels like to be a victim and what it feels like to be a mother of a victim or a father of a victim, you can't even imagine. It takes years for that healing and for that family. You know, and the shame should not be with the family and the children. You know, we have to realize that this affects everybody. And I will say this as well, we need to also provide support for not only the victim and their family, but also the families of perpetrators. They didn't ask for this.
Agreed.
They didn't ask for this, and they need huge support when this happens. You know, also, we can't blame an entire organization when one person in an organization sexually abuses a child, unless that organization knew and covered it up. That's when you can start, you know, saying, you know, you didn't do what you were responsible to do. But, you know, family members you know, they're not responsible for what their other family members do. Unless you know, and you're covering it up and you're hiding it and you're not reporting it and you're not disclosing it. That's a different ballgame.
Do you think, like, when the courts say, we'll just say John Smith, a person of trust, is that giving too many clues when the person's convicted as to maybe who the victim is?
No, because how would you know?
So. Yeah.
No,
it could be an organization, it could be a home atmosphere, it doesn't matter.
Right. Advocates for Change, what would your group like to see change in this regard?
Particularly in the interest of sexual exploitation, we want to be able to explore the option of breaking down the particular acts of sexual exploitation to possibly get minimum and maximum sentencing when it comes to sexual exploitation. So that's kind of one of our issues that we're having now, where it's kind of very broad right now. So breaking that down perhaps can lead to minimum or maximum sentencing. So.
Anything else with regard to sexual offenders list?
I want to just go back to just the perpetrator seemingly getting a discount on their sentencing because they admit guilt. I think there's an issue with that. Particularly me being a victim, I feel, for lack of a better phrase, a slap in the face for a victim. You get a discount for saying that, yes, this is what I did, but you're still at a risk to a child. I think that should be reviewed as well, in my opinion.
Right. Because, I mean, part of the thing, though, the reason that they're given a discount is because they're saving the child from having to go on the stand, which is a very traumatic experience to be in a courtroom with everyone there.
And again, I just feel that the damage has already been done, that the child has already been impacted in a large way, and it shouldn't have happened to begin with. I mean, to give the perpetrator now a lesser sentence from endangering this child's life possibly forever, it just seems outrageous to me.
There's supposed to be a system in place for court where the child can give video testimony or can be behind a screen, but there's a Supreme Court ruling dated February 14th that said child witnesses may not be behind a screen or use video testimony as it would prejudice the defense. Instead, may I pause to suggest that in Bermuda, given the present configuration of 2 criminal courts now in use, it may be practical in cases like this to, in some cases, cause the witness to testify while the defendant is in the dock by shifting the counsel who's examining or cross-examining the witness, particularly the defense counsel, to the position now traditionally occupied by the prosecution, which in each case, the position closest to the witness to the jury. I think in each case it is possible that the witness will not have the defendant in his or her line of sight at all. In Court 4, the defendant will be behind the witness. In Court 1, the defendant will be to the left side of the witness, with the witness looking right towards the jury and counsel. In that court, the defendant may be shifted to a seat behind the witness on the opposite side of the court, and in Court 4 may be shifted further west in the long dock. These are subtle changes virtually unnoticeable by the jury. I recognize that in some cases it may not be a proper solution, since it may be that being aware of the presence of the defendant in the same room, even if not maybe enough to hinder the witness from giving a candid account of the events. I'm open to submission on this suggestion. What do you think about that?
I think it just depends on the witness or the victim. I feel that every opportunity should be given to the victim or the witness to have the most comfortable situation ever. Me, again, being a victim and having to potentially give a statement in front or in the same vicinity as my perpetrator is frightening, to say the least. It just depends on, the comfort of the witness or the victim.
I know in the minor's case, the justice wasn't very happy that the witness wasn't there to give his own statement at the hearing, and basically the judge said that because he'd already spoken and given video testimony to the police, there was no reason for him not to be there to give the testimony, and that the mom's statement wasn't good enough.
I was not in the courtroom, so I don't know. So he did not give a victim impact statement? Or
the victim impact statement
was video conference?
Well, no. In the court case, when the witness, the victim was there, he actually spoke to the police. But then at the very end of the case, for the sentencing portion, the mom had written a statement on behalf of the child, and the judge didn't allow that to be read in court, because the judge ruled that since the victim had the courage to speak to the police, he should have the courage to be able to come in court and say how it impacted him.
Yeah, I think it's an individual choice. I think it depends on where that child is in their healing process. I can speak, from a victim. It is very difficult to be in a courtroom with your perpetrator. It is emotional. It brings back a flood of memories. As a child, there is so much shame. There is so much guilt you have to deal with. Why didn't I tell? Why didn't I speak up? Sometimes even in child sexual abuse cases, there's confusion, because sometimes sex feels good and you're confused in those cases. Like, I just had a victim recently say, I'm blaming myself because I went over there. I would go over there knowing what this man would do to me, and I wanted to willingly go over there. But children are confused. They don't understand sex. They don't understand intimacy. They don't. This is not about intimacy. This is about the act of sex. And but they're getting attention, or their body is responding to it. It's so confusing for a child, and none of us can say what child should do what. I mean, everybody's healing journey is different, and I think what we have to remember is they're not mini adults; they are children. And for what reason this young person did not go in the courtroom, I don't know, but it might have something to do with where he was on his journey of healing and having to face this man again. And so it could have just been very difficult. But at the end of the day, he was found guilty. And he did do this, and I think we can base everything else on that. The fact that he stole the innocence from this young boy and took advantage of this young boy for his own sexual gratification and his own illness, because that's what it is. It's an illness. It's a sickness to be sexually attracted to a child. I think that would be enough to go on.
There's been a lot of cases, one that I keep harping on it was a gentleman who has touching schoolgirls' legs on the school bus. He's been found guilty or pled guilty 3 times now. But like a lot of times people don't speak up, because like the last victim that he had knew that the other girls on the bus had told him, don't let him sit next to you, don't let him sit there. You talk about having the courage to say something, but like obviously the people that were on that bus knew that this man has a problem, and he's been diagnosed as having I can't remember the name, but some sort of sexual
deviance or issue,
sexual disease that he can't help himself. So how do we help somebody like that and still protect our children? I actually, after knowing about it, I went and complained to both the Minister of Education and the Minister of Transportation at that point about why is this man being allowed to ride the school bus, or allowed to ride the bus, or or at least have to sit next to the bus driver right at the front.
Absolutely. That's exactly what should have been done. He sits right behind the bus driver, and nobody sits next to him. I mean, we have to do everything we can to prevent it. And sometimes that means people have to have rules and boundaries. And so once you know, then you have to do the right thing. You have to react responsibly once you have the facts.
What are some things that you would like to see happen going forward now that there's still a lot of more awareness? For example, there's a child porn case that's going on in court this week. Man has allegedly caught with 1,230 images on his laptop. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security actually notified the Bermuda police that that this particular IP address was accessing child porn. Is watching child porn, is that a sign of something to come, or is it not related at all?
Well, let me read the definition of child sexual abuse.
Okay.
Any sexual act between an adult and a minor or between two minors when one exerts power over the other. Forcing, coercing, persuading a child to engage in any type of sexual act. It also includes non-contact acts, such as exhibitionism, exposure to pornography, voyeurism, and communicated in a sexual manner by phone or internet, often a traumatic experience for children and teens. Having sexual thoughts of children is definitely an illness. I mean, addiction, affliction, whatever you want to call it. But when you act on that, it becomes a crime. And so I would say we have to look at our child pornography laws. And are they strict enough? And who are these children? Where did he find these images from? Where did they originate from?
Well, in this case, it's like a peer-to-peer networking share.
With children on children.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think they need to do some serious investigating. I can also tell you that if I was a parent, I would learn all I can about how to protect our children on social media. Mm-hmm. I would definitely go to cybertips.bm, call Sloan Wilson or Mark Clark over there. Find out everything you can to protect your children on social media. Find out where your children are going on social media, and report when you see it. That's what's an important part is, shedding light on this, because that person, and I always say it in our trainings, if you see any child pornography on your husband's phone, your spouse's, your wife's, your colleague, your family member, report it to cybercrime. Make a report.
And you mentioned Sloan and CyberTips. They're actually having their conference coming up. I want to say May, but I may be incorrect. But shortly, they had a meeting last week with the guest speakers and panelists to start planning for. But I attended last year, and very few parents attended that up at Cedar Bridge Academy. I'd want to say there were probably no more than 40 parents that showed up for the parent session. Yeah. So I'd like to encourage everybody, when it comes, if you should probably attend, and not that it's necessarily dealing with porn or child sexual.
Keeping your child safe.
Keeping your child safe on the internet.
Absolutely, it's so important, and it is a choice. We all, as adults, have choices to make, whether we're going to invest the time and do everything we can to protect our children and to have those open conversations with our children. That is a choice, and we have to work hard, because perpetrators are out there, and they're going to work really hard to get to our children and do everything they can. So it is incumbent of all of us. It's not just government's responsibility. It's not just SCAR's responsibility or Advocates for Change responsibility or the media's responsibility. Every single person in this community has a responsibility to protect innocence, and we all have a part to play, and we have to learn everything we can on how to do that.
Well, we sort of touched on social media a bit. How is this affecting things today? I mean, a lot of kids have cell phones. A cell phone when I was growing up as a teenager was one of those big brick things. But now it seems like children as young as 7 have cell phones and access and potentially being exposed to predators. How important, and then of course social media then amplifies things. So how important is it for us to monitor that as parents and adults?
I think it goes back to, again, education. A lot of parents are new to this whole tech-savvy age, where we're not privy to the information that we need to be telling our children about, what sites they should be going on. And even, the latest with this video to do with suicide, where they're accessing a kid's site and pushing in these videos. We need to be extra vigilant when it comes to these type of things. I mean, it's outrageous. I mean, things that we wouldn't think of, we need to go and really uncover everything, like really be thorough with what our children are doing. We basically just give them our phone or our laptop or our tablet and say, go sit in the corner and they can do what they like, and it shouldn't be like that. We should know exactly what they're doing every single second that they're on these devices.
I would tell every single parent to go on cybertips.em. They have if you go on their website, they have such great information on there.
Now, just to elaborate, I know some people may not know, but Momo and the
Yep.
so do you want to just explain what was happening?
So basically, and my child is a member of the kids' YouTube, and you go on this YouTube site with Peppa Pig, which all the young kids, maybe from 1 to 3, are watching, and they click on this website, and then halfway or partial way through the movie or the video, Momo, who is this fictional character, comes in and gives you a story about killing yourself. Now, me as a mother and a grandmother was mortified. I mean, just to think that my child or my grandson would be able to access this child site, which is quote unquote safe for children, to then be exposed to such, I mean, horrible. Just to think that, something as sensitive as suicide can be introduced to your child via their tablet or their phone. Wow, I mean, outrageous that we wouldn't think of 10 years ago or 5 years ago, where we need to be, like I said, extra vigilant on what our children are doing every second, to the point where now we have to sit with our kids and watch videos, which comes back to the interaction that we're not having with our kids anymore. Where we just, like I said, sit them in a corner and give them our tablet or our phone.
The tablet to babysit them rather than us watching.
So it comes back to education, and it comes back to interaction, and knowing exactly what your kids are doing every second.
Absolutely.
I know, like CyberTips would say, like kids who have social media accounts, whether it's Snapchat or Instagram or TikTok, one of the newest ones, is for them to have the passwords for their kids' accounts, and tell them, like, I'm going to check it whenever I want to, because I've paid for that device as well.
And there's great apps out there. I know from Kelly Hunt from the Coalition for the Protection of Children. My daughters are older now, but she has a app called She told me about an app called Kids Locks. I'll never forget it. KIDSLOX. And it really helps you monitor how long they're going to be online, where they're going online. And I think the best thing is just find out all you can on the best ways to protect your children, and then monitor them after you've provided them with these, social media, tablets and phones.
To you, I know David Miners are sort of sprung up, but like Debbie, the scars have been around a little bit longer. I don't know if we necessarily want to mention any other names, but have you seen some really horrific sentencing over the years? I mean, does SCARS keep record of the sentences and what people?
Well, on our website, scarsbermuda.com, if you go to the icon that says "In the News," we have been trying to keep every article that names child sex offenders or child sex cases. We've been putting them on there. But what SCARS really focuses on is prevention. This stuff is preventable, and all of us can do. There are so many things that we can do to prevent child sexual abuse, and that's where we put our focus, is being education and awareness on what we can do to minimize the risk of child sexual abuse to occur, because it's preventable. And there are things that all of us can do, and I think Bermuda has come a long way in 7 years. Now we're seeing organizations mandate prevention training. We're seeing organizations implement a code of conduct, a document that describes how the adults and the older children interact with the children in their care. Parents are having conversations about body safety with their children, teaching them that nobody should touch them, giving them the proper names for their body parts, teaching them what consent is. That's the other thing. We have to have real conversations about what is consent. And what is considered consent, and teaching children that they don't touch other children in their private body parts. 40% of sexual abuse occurs on child. So teaching children about boundaries and respecting other children's boundaries. All of that starts very young, and I think we have seen a community that has now educated, and I think the cases hopefully, I mean, now what's happening, historical cases are coming out because people have been silent for generations. And now what you realize is, oh my gosh, this happened to me. It shouldn't have happened. Now I had a lady, now I understand why I've had a drug addiction. Now I understand why I have an alcohol problem, numbing out on my pain, just hoping it was going to go away. And people are starting to figure out, I'm not really a bad person. The things that I've been doing and the choices that I've made is because of the pain that I've endured as a child, and I never was able to talk about it. And I think we're seeing some healing going on as well, and some validation and affirmation for our victims and our survivors in this country. And so now reporting, we are probably going to see more reporting from historical cases because people are feeling empowered. Especially for perpetrators that are still out there, because they are still a danger to children. To think that they can fix themselves is false. I don't think, it's a sickness if they have sexual thoughts of children.
They need help.
They need help, and reporting is very, very important because we don't want to allow these sex offenders to continue to offend, because that is more damage, more scars, more pain. It affects our community in terms of our relationships. It affects our community in terms of crime. You have angry people who were abused and not protected when they were little. That would make a child angry when they grew up, I would think, whether they were abandoned or rejected or abused. I would think that would make someone angry. It would make someone sad. It would make someone depressed, have anxiety, question themselves on their sexual preference. It would make them, not like authority, not trust anybody, have thoughts of suicide.
PTSD.
Exactly, PTSD. It will create so many things. And so you can imagine if we don't heal that early on, we have scarred adults. And so I think the more education we have and the more awareness and the more advocates that we have, so appreciate what you're doing. This will create change, and prevention is just so important. It's so important.
You talked about more historical cases coming out, because recently, and I don't know if it was the first part of this year or the end of last year, where there was the 30-year sexual assault from 1988, where the woman came forward, and I believe the person that was found guilty. But you think that we're going to be seeing more cases that from 10, 20, 30 years ago?
Well, I really hope so. I hope that people can build up their courage, only because if their perpetrator is still alive, they're still a danger. And I don't think it's going to stop. I think there has to be I think you're doing that person really a favor to start shedding some light on this illness. Or I'm hoping that if there are people out there that are suffering with sexual thoughts of children, that they're going to reach out and get some help. Get some help. There's no cure, I understand, but at least it's treatable. They can be given tools like any other addiction. But family members have to be honest about this and understand, if you have an alcoholic, you're not going to give them a drink and say, here, you can have a drink. But it's the same thing. We cannot give our children to sex offenders. We have to do everything we can to reduce that risk.
And so you're making a plea for people who are dealing with these sorts of thoughts to go out and get help right now.
Why wouldn't we want them to do that? Why would we want them to stay underground or to act on those thoughts? They need help. And we have a lot of great professionals in this community that they can reach out to and get some help for that. Because a child will become scarred, and it will affect you for the rest of your life. And that is why it's so important that we educate ourselves in this issue and do everything we can to preserve innocence.
Right. I know part of the thing at the sentencing, Justice Graves was talking about how this possibly could be with them with the rest of their life, but you're saying
possibly. It will be.
It's a scar. It can heal. I've gone from victim, I always tell in my trainings, I've gone from victim to survivor, and now I call myself a thriver. I really know that what happened was not my fault. I did nothing to cause it, and now I know why I didn't tell anybody till my late 30s. I never told my parents, and now I understand all the things because I understand child sexual abuse now, and I have healed. Healing is very possible for this issue, you can heal. You can. It takes a lot of work, but I think the message is this is preventable, and we all have a responsibility, all of us, to protect children.
Right. We're just going back to maybe potential predators out there in our community. Like a lot of mental problems that people have, whether it's anxiety, depression, thoughts of suicide, there's always that shame, stigma of trying to get mental health. If you're walking around with a broken arm, or people see that and they offer you, sympathy and comfort. But when you have something else mentally wrong, emotionally wrong, and you try to get help, then people look at you as not being whole. Well, you're not. But then there's there's a reluctance to seek help because you don't want other people looking at you funny. But then it's sort of you internalize it. It makes it worse.
And again, I think it comes back to the whole awareness and education. I mean, the stigma needs to be deadened. Basically, with Advocates for Change, as part of our mission is to kind of give them an opportunity, an outlet to be able to be amongst people that are victims, that have survived this, including myself. I agree that it's going to stay with me for the rest of my life, but with staying with me, it's what's pushing me to advocate for others. So I entreat anyone who wants to be a voice, who wants to fight with us, to reach out to us at advocatesbda@gmail.com. We're welcome to, you're welcome to be a part of this movement. The more voices, the better.
Right. So if they want to reach out to you, what are you moving forward, your group, because you just recently formed, what do you see yourselves doing?
This is in any capacity. I mean, we just want to be a voice for anything that's plaguing our community. There's so many issues, mental health. There's, the whole child exploitation and a whole lot of things that we just want to take steps towards being advocates, being those voices that there's a lot of, silent souls just walking around, not being able to say what it is that they need, So we want our community to know that we're the catalyst. We don't want to be the face. We want to be, in connection with other people to kind of push these issues to the forefront. There's so many things that need to be changed in Bermuda.
And Debbie, your final thoughts?
Well, my final thoughts are, children are a gift. And when we bring a little one into the world, we have to do everything we can to protect them. We have to let them know that they are loved, that they are special, that they are important and worthy. And as they get older, we have to let them know that they have a purpose and not to ever give up on hope, no matter what has happened in their life. And I think that's the most important message, is if we each look at a child as a gift. And what do we do with gifts? We appreciate them, we love them, and I think that's the most important message when we bring a child into the world, not to just look at it as, this person over there. This is a person with feelings, with a soul, that needs education, that needs safety, that needs protection, and that needs unconditional love.
Thank you. Appreciate Shanika Jones.
Thank you so much
for being here for Advocates for Change Bermuda. Debbie Ray Rivers from SCARS. Next week our talk is going to be wide-ranging on education, and hopefully that'll be a good discussion, because the future of Bermuda relies on how well we get our kids educated and set them up for success to take advantages of all the wonderful opportunities that are here in Bermuda, whether that means that they're working for a reinsurance company or an international business, or they're able to set up their own business, working a trade or construction. There's lots of opportunities for our kids to be successful. I'm Don Burgess. I appreciate you tuning in to News and Views, and I hope you have a beautiful afternoon.